Today we are driving the 2020 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. Coming up a little later, we're going to take this thing off-road, and I'm going to tell you a story about a time I almost died in a Toyota 4Runner. But first, information explosion! Fifth generation 4Runner was originally introduced in 2009, and yet it still sells amazingly well, sweetie, for $500 within 5,000 units. Tell me, how many 4Runners were sold in America in 2019?
30.
You're only off by 100,000. 132,000 of these were sold in 2019, which is crazy. How and why is it so successful? Let's dig into that question with the interior. Interior! First thoughts, what do you think of the interior?
It feels like a truck in here.
Oh, you mean it feels like a pickup truck?
It does.
Yeah, I think maybe your SUV standards are anchored by the Honda CR-V you drive.
Totally.
This is definitely a more resilient, robust, rugged version of an SUV.
This looks ready to do some business.
Yes. What do you mean by that, buddy? I'd like to point out that the knobs are these big knobs that you can grab. There's these buttons. In fact, this makes very little sense here in California, but if you live somewhere where they have winter and you want to grab a knob with gloves, those make a lot of sense.
You mean like this?
And we actually need the mitts because it's freezing here.
California's waiting whenever you guys are ready to thaw out. The Straight Pipes. Subscribe to their channel. We're collabing.
McDonald's.
Whoa, my daughter called that McDonald's. That is an In-N-Out Burgers. We call that a burger foul.
It's not a burger foul.
Well, ask the people at In-N-Out Burger what they think.
Okay, my only other experience in an off-road vehicle recently was the Gladiator, and this is so much roomier than the Gladiator.
So the Gladiator is really just a Wrangler with a bed on the back.
Yes.
So I think you'd find that same cozy interior vibe with a Wrangler that you did in the Gladiator. So I think that's a reasonable observation. With me in the back seat, the prototypical average 5'10" American male, I fit pretty well, actually. One thing that's available in here that you will not get on a Jeep Wrangler is an optional third row. They can cram a third row seat back there, not in the one that we're driving. I'm not sure how roomy that is. If you have experience with the third row in the 4Runner, tell us in the comments section. How are you feeling about seat comfort?
I haven't thought about it, so it's good enough.
I'm going to offer a few observations. When you move the seat, at least this one, the tracks sort of rumble like you're on a subway in New York. The seat comfort, by the way, Toyota is great at this, about removing pressure points and making a very smooth feeling seat. And this is a little bit of a miracle, but the lumbar support, if it's at max lumbar, is almost too much for me.
What?
Not too much, but almost. One slight bit of disappointment, though, if we were to share this vehicle, we'd have to adjust our seats every single time. There's no memory for the driver's seat. Ooh. Rear window test. Armrest test. More than enough padding on the inboard. That's actually very nice. There's some stitching on the edge here, but it's not really messing with my comfort. Outboard, a little under padded for my taste, but I can drive in a comfortable 8 and 4. I'm going to give that 3/4 up. Let's talk about family friendliness. So for putting a car seat in the back, there are outboard latch points, and then there are anchors for all 3 positions. The latch points are really easy to find. And you know how sometimes like the car seat is at a certain angle, but the seat back is not?
Yes.
And adjusting them so they match can be inconvenient. The lever is really conveniently located, so you can just match those up. And then, of course, the big question is when you have a 4-year-old, how easily can she climb aboard? If the 4Runner didn't have the optional running boards, I think it would be a real struggle.
I am relatively short. I'm 5'2", and it was difficult for me to lean over her far enough to get her seatbelt in. I was not standing on the running
You'd
board.
have to stand on the running board, but
That's awkward.
That is definitely a more precarious way to do that. So that can be a little bit tricky, and especially too if those running boards are covered in mud, which if we do our shoot today correctly, they will be. Safety for the 4Runner is okay. 4 stars overall, a 3-star front passenger impact. Sorry, sweetie. 3-star rollover. So that's not great.
Sorry, sweetie.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, sweetie. Sorry, all of us, sweeties. So consider those safety numbers if you're in the market to buy a 4Runner. Just a few quick more family-friendly notes. There are rear vents. There are 2 USB ports, so when she gets older and doesn't want to talk to us, she'll have a place to charge her phone. And then the view out, can you tell us, how do you like the view out from your seat back there? You like it? Can you see pretty well? Ah, there you go. For cargo space, behind the second row, there are 46.3 cubic feet to work with, which is a pretty good amount. There's also a feature in the back that I bet you haven't seen, sweetie. Go check out the cargo area.
Hold it and then pull? Oh.
What do you think?
I don't know what to think.
It'll hold 440 pounds.
My imagination can't come up with proper uses for it.
Can you imagine some uses for the slide out deck cargo thing? Tell us in the comments section. Rounding out the interior, there are lots of nice little storage nooks. There are like 10 or 12 cup holders. I don't know, I haven't gotten a definitive count, but plenty of cup holders. Quick interjection, we want to thank everybody who participated in the laptop giveaway with Andy the Lab and Savage Geese. Oh, you winners, you've got cool laptops. And look at all that cool footage that Deb from Andy the Lab shot. Ah,
Whoa.
wow. Yeah, that's some pretty neat footage and some pretty neat laptops. So congratulations to everybody who won. High fives, everybody. Thanks for playing along. She's a spooky pumpkin, and I'm a guy who would love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already subscribed. And if you like the video, like the video. When we get to 50,000 subs, I'm going to tell you a terrible dark secret about my hair. Style! I think there's something happening here that works in the world of pickup trucks and SUVs that would not apply if this were a sedan. Sedans, their shape is dictated a lot more by frivolity and style, whereas SUVs and pickup trucks are defined by their function. If you've got a box on wheels, that speaks to the function of an SUV. There's only so many ways to shape a box, so we accept it as being a fine design, even though it's fairly old. And they've also updated the design over the years, but I guess what I would say is that if you look at the previous generation G-Wagon and how many decades they got out of that shape.
I really like its shape, but I love a box.
Meander over to the Urban Dictionary if you're not sure about that one. Now, if you were to see just a standard 4Runner, I don't know if you'd be quite as dazzled, but there are a few things happening with the TRD Pro that give it a little extra zazz. $345 running boards.
That does not seem optional to me.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, you're just a tiny little thing. If some Viking were to breeze on in here, he'd be like, I don't need these running boards.
Okay.
You ain't no Viking is what I'm saying.
Sick burn, bro.
Oh, good, we got to use the graphic. What do you think of the exterior color?
I love the color, mostly because I feel like it helps make it look more like a toy.
In the scenario where I'm sort of an imaginary G.I. Joe, this is my mobile command unit, naturally the paint is called Army Green. It goes to show, like, even if you have like an older design, with the right color, it can look very contemporary and very cool. This is definitely the color I'd go with. Then there are also some TRD specific details. You got front skid plates, the Nitto off-road tires give it this sort of beefy, ready to go conquer the world vibe. And then on top, the roof rack. I don't know if it's functional, if we'd ever put anything in it, but it sure looks like we're about ready to go have adventures, even though we're probably going to Whole Foods. That's a great place to get some quinoa. Rounding out the aesthetic, you've got some fog lights up front, and then of course a big old hood scoop that's completely non-functional, needless full throttle acceleration. Whee! Oh yeah, we've got something to talk about. Hey, if you guys want to know what I'm driving or flying between YouTube videos, come on over to Instagram. Future Evie has put my handle down there at the bottom. I'd love to hear from you. In motion! In short, the Toyota 4Runner TRD drives like a truck. I'm really tempted to just leave it at that because I don't know how much nuance anybody who's buying this needs about driving dynamics. Nonetheless, let's add just a little bit more detail. There are Fox shocks and springs, other vehicles that have that kind of off-road oriented damper setup. They tend to ride pretty well. What is interesting though is that you can see the nose lift and dip as you apply the brakes. It moves. There's a lot of body movement, which is not surprising and completely appropriate for an off-road. The steering in a vacuum is completely lacking in feel and precision. Unless you've driven a Jeep Wrangler recently, this feels very sophisticated by comparison. Strangely, the TRD Pro corners with more tenacity than you would expect from a big, rugged off-roader. Then again, it did only get 3 stars on the rollover test from NHTSA, so use that cornering ability with some caution.
Are we off-road or not?
No, we are not off-road. We're definitely not off-road. Cornering! From the driver's seat, the overriding feel is that the 4Runner is heavy. And sure enough, it is 4,750 pounds. It's not fast. It's not for a lack of power either. I think the real challenge with the 4Runner is its dated 5-speed automatic transmission. There are times where you're sort of between where it would want to downshift, and it just can't make the most of the power that the engine offers. So maybe a more modern transmission should be on the wish list for 4Runner buyers. In total, for just driving around suburbia, where I bet a lot of people will wind up driving these things, it's not the most sophisticated ride, but again, see my Wrangler example from earlier, it could always be worse.
And it seems like a good trade-off if it performs well off-road.
You know what, this makes me think of my Honda S2000 I used to own. I always wanted a Lotus Elise, but I realized after driving a Lotus Elise that the S2000 was as much of an Elise as I want. If you did a back-to-back between this and a Jeep Wrangler, you might discover that this is as much Wrangler as you want. Emotion factor. The emotion factor for me with the 4Runner is actually pretty strong, but it's framed by my background. I promised earlier that I'd share a story about when I almost died in a 4Runner. Coming down from Mount Hood, my dad was driving that 1987 Toyota 4Runner. It lacked any of the active safety assist that this vehicle has, and right on the edge of a cliff, he was braking, and then the tail came around, ass end into the snow. We went the correct way, which was into the mountain rather than off a cliff. So I have an emotionally charged relationship with the 4Runner, and by emotionally charged, I mean quite positive. I love that 4Runner. We had a lot of great adventures. I think all of that potential for adventure wrapped up in a shape like this that still is so charming. I think the emotion factor is strong. What do you think?
I completely agree. Like, I feel ready for adventure when I step into this car. I don't have the history you have with it, but
Not yet.
but yeah, I'm really looking forward to going and doing some off-roading in here.
Yeah. If you're feeling moved emotionally to shop for 4Runners, click the link below in the description, and you can go check out some Kelley Blue Book listings of 4Runners near you. Remarks. The 4Runner has a particularly cool attribute that I don't think you'll find on almost any other SUV, and that is a power rear window. Check this out.
Again and again.
One thing that's missing is a 360 camera, which feels a little indulgent, but when parking something with a little bit of mass, a 360 camera is great. And if that sounds too mamby-pamby for you, a 360 camera is really, really helpful when you're off-roading, because you can see all around the vehicle and you have a better sense of whether or not you're about to scrape a fender off. The infotainment system is an 8-inch unit. It's a very kind of elemental display. But what I do like is that it includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Toyota was late to the Android Auto game, but they finally came around. One weird thing that's semi-related, look over here on the steering wheel and check out this control. Anything seem weird to you?
It's very bulky.
It's bulky, but again, it's a Toyota 4Runner and people with gloves might need that.
Okay.
What I'm noticing is that the up and down for the volume is on the left and the right side, and track forward and back is up and down. Why would you do that? What are they thinking?
I don't know.
I know. Is that hilarious? That's hilarious. That's right. There's a feature that I enjoyed on my old 2002 Mini Cooper that is not present here. Do you know of a way to make the 4Runner flash 3 times with a single touch of the turnstock? If you do, tell us in the comments. If you plan to tow your Toyota 4Runner, you've got a 5,000 pound max. There's a hitch back there with 4 and 7-pin connectors. Tow on, America. And if you plan to take your 4Runner off-road, you'll be happy to know there's a full-size spare. Another 4Runner adventure from my childhood, we went camping, my dad, my brother, and I, and we went on a little fire road, and there were these tiny trees that they'd been cut at an angle, and my dad was asking us to guide him around them, and I remember distinctly telling him to stop, but he did not. He slashed both right side tires. We were in the middle of nowhere. This is before cell phones were a thing. There was no sat phone, so we just parked the car and then walked as long as we could, and then eventually we found a payphone. And we called my mom, who just happened to be home, and she called a friend who bought 2 wheels and tires, and then they drove out to the wilderness and managed to find us. So it pays to have a full-size spare, is what I'm saying. Most important remark, the Toyota 4Runner is an excellent off-roader, at least I think so. Let's take it off-road. Voila, like that, magically we've been transported to an off-highway vehicle park. Hooray! At our disposal is 9.6 inches of ground clearance, also indicating that this is an old school SUV. If you want to shift into 4-wheel drive, you've got a dedicated lever down here. Multi-terrain select, active. Select 4 low. ESC off, pre-collision brake system unavailable. That's great. Let's make some memories.
You get right into it.
Now, do you think the TRD Pro can handle this sort of madness? I don't know what we're going over because there's no camera up front, so I just have to use my wits and wile.
What if there's like a woodland creature?
Is that your concern? You know, most off-roaders would be concerned about high centering or, you know, all the other issues that can befall you while you're off-roading. But, you know, woodland creatures and their well-being is another concern.
This is really crazy.
This is a little bit crazy. Let's see what else we can find up here. Awesome.
Do I need to get video of it?
Ah, that is so cool. Off-roading in a Grom. So my feet aren't on the brakes or the gas.
Whoa.
And it's maintaining its own pace as we go down the hill.
What's that noise?
That's the brakes maintaining a specific speed for us that I control up here. Look, the Muzio family's crawl controlling. Hooray!
Yay. Since the car's doing all the work, does this mean we have more, you can take your hands off the wheel for more high fives?
No, I have to steer the thing.
Aww.
You can get a foot 5 though if you want. Here, yeah! Mud, sand, and dirt. We got loose rock. Mogul. Ooh, we might have to use that one. Rock. And what, potpourri? No, heavy. Let's set this up for Mogul. Whee! Whee! Leaning to the side. For the record, I am not driving this in an extreme off-road way because I would like to return it to Toyota in great condition. Go be more extreme than me, post a video, include a link in the comment section. I'd love to see what you do. Should we go that way or that way?
That way.
That way? Okay. If you get stuck, it's my daughter's fault.
This is an interesting way.
This is an interesting way. And loose sand here. Seems to be no problem for the Nitto tires. We seem to be making good use of the ground clearance. Nothing dramatic or terrible has happened yet.
This is fun.
This
Yay.
is fun. I have a suspicion that if we were true off-roaders and doing some really gnarly stuff, the TRD Pro would be a fantastic platform. And it'd look awesome while doing it. Radical. What do we think? Is the Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro Muzio approved?
Yes.
Yes, Muzio approved. The Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro costs about $50,000 depending on the options you add to it, which is more than you'd spend, like $6,000 more than you'd spend on a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, which is a very capable off-road. But when you start adding in options, that price disparity starts to change a little bit. Then again, the Wrangler has the ability to take the roof off, and that's really neat. This is a debate I kind of don't want to get in the middle of. Hey, comment section, have at it. Did I miss any remarks? If I did, Tell us in the comment section. Synopsis. I'm thinking about the essence of the Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, and it's old, but it is still quite the badass. To me, the essence of the TRD Pro is Liam Neeson. Sweetie, do you know how old he is?
Oh no.
That's the, he's an old actor alarm going off. The answer is 67, and yet, if you're a wolf, he'll stab you. If you're a terrorist, he'll beat you the hell up.
What if I'm just a middle-aged lady who likes cat jokes?
I think he'd probably want to take you to tea. Oh, okay. See you at tea, Liam. Hey, did you like this video? If you did, be sure to hit the like button. Leave us a comment. We always love hearing from you, especially if you own a TRD Pro or another 4Runner. It's great to hear from owners and hear their comments. If you haven't subscribed, please do. At 100K, I'm going to review a windowless white van. It'll be creepy. Maybe you'll join me. Who knows? Good job TRD Proing, everybody. Want to get your high five?
Wait, you have to go to the camera.
You left me hanging, sweetie. Why? Thank you. And now the camera. High fives, everybody.